official, the national showdown where all these top Zimbabwe companies are going to be contesting for the top awards. 18 of these awards are going to be contested tonight. So we hope you'll join us soon for the awards, and we are also going to be broadcasting live from Victoria Falls, Elephant Hills. Thank you so much for taking your time to watch us right here. Ms. Ngaga, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to us. Hope to see you soon. This is Thank you. Catching us live once more again. We are still at Elephant Hills in Victoria Falls, and we are excited to have the ZNCC President, Mr. Norupiri. David? Yes, and he's going to be catching up with us live here on some few issues, and we need to fully understand what has been happening here with ZNCC. Mr. Norupiri, thank you so much for taking your time to have us right here at Elephant Hills, Victoria Falls.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have quite a number of issues which we deliberated. We actually deliberated on issues to do with policies which are pro-business. We have some policies which the government came up with, and some of the policies business really grabbed into them, and they actually made strides. We have one of the major policies, the SI 64 of 2016, which the government came up with. You find that there was great resistance on as far as everyone is concerned, because there was a bit of confusion whereby people couldn't understand it. But as we go, ourselves as a chamber, we had to take it up and teach and educate people the benefits of the SI, of which some of the benefits which we realized out of the SI is actually the increase in capacity utilization. Quite a number of companies, they had to increase their capacity, and by so doing they created employment, because you cannot increase capacity at the same time you are not creating employment. So a number of companies, they are rising from 35%, and some of them are up to 80% capacity utilization, and by so doing they were employing during the process. So why we feel it's important, I know other people may talk of the issue of opening up the market so that we can compete with everyone. Yes. Our really industries and our economy is actually not in a very good shape, to the extent that we are in a position to compete with everyone globally at the moment. So basically the SI was actually trying to make sure that Zimbabwe cannot become a net importer. But nevertheless, because of the increase of capacity utilization, we have seen that most of the companies now, they are also catching up in terms of issues of competitiveness. As you know that if you are to increase your capacity, you will be increasing your output, and as a result, your price per unit will definitely go down. We also witnessed quite a number of other companies we have been exporting into Zimbabwe, and some of these companies, they are no longer exporting because of the SI 64 of 2016, which is really trying to protect the local manufacturers. So since these companies had tested the Zimbabwean market already, they felt that they can actually get into Zimbabwe and actually invest into Zimbabwe so that they enjoy the sale market.
If I can just stop you there, Mr. Norupiri. Yeah. On the SI 64, yeah. There's maybe from a layman understanding, people are saying, if an external company can come into Zimbabwe and be profitable, how come we are not making it as Zimbabwean companies? What is it that you are liking for someone who can actually come through, charge duty, and is much more competitive than our own local companies? Is there not an error there that needs to be corrected by the Zimbabwean industry? Instead of us shutting doors, we should be able to open them, and we are more competitive. I don't understand. What's your take on that issue?
The problem or the challenge is that the SI is actually trying to mitigate or trying to avoid quite a number of challenges which were coming in out of the exports which were coming into Zimbabwe. We had dumping which was actually happening. We were now receiving some substandard products coming into this country. We were now receiving goods which were almost about to expire coming in at this country, and those goods were actually being charged lower prices simply because they are about to expire, or they are not really up to standard as far as those countries are concerned. We also had some challenges on some of the goods which we actually experimented. It was just an open experiment to just open a tinned beans tin Some of the products which we were getting, it was like a half beans, half soup, and the price was maybe 3-4 cents cheaper as compared to the local products which we opened, and it was, the whole tin was actually full of beans. So you find that if you are looking at the product on the shelf, obviously you opt for the other one, which you may feel that probably is cheaper.
Yeah.
So those are some of the anomalies which we were also picking during the process. If we are to move on some other things, you find that we ourselves as Zimbabweans, it's actually better, it was actually better for us to value add our own raw materials or to import raw materials at a cheaper cost and then export, therefore realizing the much needed foreign currency into the country. So SI 64 has actually reduced the import bill by almost close to $1 billion, which is really a major saving if you are looking at companies now increasing their capacity utilization, creating employment and so forth. So there are quite a number of benefits which we realized as business, and we are still even realizing them. You find that like what I've highlighted before, investors now started to have appetite to actually come and invest in Zimbabwe. We have got the giant Willoton, which has invested in Mtare simply because of the SI. Willoton tested the Zimbabwean market in 2007, 2008, when we were not really producing to capacity. I'm talking of oil. So they were actually shipping their products from South Africa here, and they tested the Zimbabwean market. So after the promulgation of the SI, they discovered that it was now very difficult for them to export willy-nilly, and they came and invested in this country. We also have a company called Trade Kings, which is known by their famous brand Boom on washing powders. They've invested in this country because of exactly the same thing. And what we are talking of in terms of numbers of employment, it's actually something significant. So basically ourselves as business people, we benefited out of it. And most of the companies, they are now also competitive because they are now working on volumes. They are moving volumes. So the volumes now which they are moving, we have since realized that the cost of production is going down. And as a result, we'll be in a position to compete with the regional market. Although we are still on the high side on some products, but some products are already being exported into the region. I think Zimbabwe is exporting more than 3 billion worth of products and commodities, which simply means that in other areas we are competing globally. So basically that's how it is. And like what the Minister of Industry highlighted, SI64, it's not a permanent feature. It's just a reprieve for a period of time for the local industry. It's not something which is going to go for good. So it has actually given us a little bit of time to be prepared to take ourselves
2016, more than 7.5 billion megabytes of data was used in Zimbabwe alone, making advanced technology, supported software and scalable infrastructure a high priority. The TEL1 Data Center is a state-of-the-art, high-security data center where big data is collected, stored, processed, distributed and accessed. The data center offers a one-stop shop service which allows customers to get everything under one roof. The range of services include rack space rental or server rack units rental, where customers are able to install their own servers or rent servers from TEL1's enterprise data center facility. Co-location services allow enterprises to rent space for servers and have their information and communication technology (ICT) equipment housed by TEL1. Cloud services allow corporates and individual customers to have their @domain name.co.zw emails. Local domain registration ensures that your website and email server is secure from unprotected sources and risk of hacking. Storage facilities. Clients can store their data, create databases and back up their critical data for quick recovery in case of emergency. Virtualized hosting environments. Enterprises can do away with the need to buy capital equipment such as servers and related infrastructure.
The problem or the challenge is that the SI is actually trying to mitigate or trying to avoid quite a number of challenges which were coming in out of the exports which were coming into Zimbabwe. We had dumping which was actually happening. We were now receiving some substandard products coming into this country. We were now receiving goods which were almost about to expire coming in at this country, and those goods were actually being charged lower prices simply because they are about to expire or they are not really up to standard as far as those countries are concerned. We also had some challenges on some of the goods which we actually experimented. It was just an open experiment to just open a tinned beans tin. Some of the products which we were getting, it was like half beans, half soup, and the price was maybe 3-4 cents cheaper as compared to the local products which we opened. And it was, the whole tin was actually full of beans. So you find that if you are looking at the product on the shelf, obviously you opt for the other one, which you may feel that probably is cheaper. So those are some of the anomalies which we were also picking during the process. If we are to move on some other things, you find that we ourselves as Zimbabweans, it's actually better, it was actually better for us to value add our own raw materials or to import raw materials at a cheaper cost and then export, therefore realizing the much needed foreign currency into the country. So SI-64 has actually reduced the import bill by almost close to $1 billion, which is really a major saving if you are looking at companies now increasing their capacity utilization, creating employment and so forth. So there are quite a number of benefits which we realized as business, and we are still even realizing them. You find that, like what I've highlighted before, investors now started to have appetite to actually come and invest in Zimbabwe. We have got the giant Willoton, which has invested in Mtare simply because of the SI. Willoton tested the Zimbabwean market in 2007, 2008, when we were not really producing to capacity. I'm talking of oil. So they were actually shipping their product. We have a company called Trade Kings, which is known by their famous brand Boom on washing powders. They've invested in this country because of exactly the same thing. And what we are talking of in terms of numbers of employment, it's actually something significant. So basically ourselves as business people, we benefited out of it. And most of the companies, they are now also competitive because they are now working on volumes. They are moving volumes. So the volumes now which they are moving, we have since realized that the cost of production is going down. And as a result, we'll be in a position to compete with the regional market. Although we are still on the high side on some products, but some products are already being exported into the region. I think Zimbabwe is exporting more than 3 billion worth of products and commodities, which simply means that in other areas we are competing globally. So basically that's how it is. And like what the Minister of Industry highlighted, SI64 us a little bit of time to be prepared to take ourselves to where we are supposed to be, so that the market can be opened and we can compete with any other country in the region. So basically that's how it is. If we look at other initiatives, other pro-business policies which government has come up with, we look at the ease of doing business, which is actually being spearheaded by the Office of the President and Cabinet. They have actually done very well, and we have seen quite a change on the behavior on government institutions. You are talking of the municipalities, you are talking of the city councils, you are talking even the regulation authorities. They've changed their mindset simply because of the ease of doing business initiative, which is actually spearheaded by government itself. And it was really difficult for someone to come and easily invest in this country. But we have seen some changes, and we have seen the appetite which the government has in order to really promote business. So those are some of the issues. We also talked and we discussed about the issue of the special economic zones. Yeah, it has been just signed into law. And ourselves as business, we are actually waiting for government to come up with the benefits of the special economic zone, so that we can actually talk to people for them to start now really investing in those special economic zones. But as it is now, like what you heard, the VP actually highlighted that there are quite a number of companies which have already shown interest simply because the special economic zone model it's working. And if you look at the Chinese scenario, China, they actually came up with that, and their economy changed simply because of some of those measures. So we have quite a number, and we are really happy as business, and we are saying, look, let's now maintain some of those policies so that we instill investor confidence. We need the policy consistency. We don't want to keep on chopping and changing, but as much as we may probably need to come up with as many as we want in terms of the reforms on business policies, I think we also need to maintain, and we also need to make sure that business is promoted all the time. So what we want now is instilling of confidence in the investors out there. Lastly, it's the issue of the intervention by the monetary authorities, the Ministry of Finance, in terms of reducing duty on raw materials. It's something which we also cherish, and we have seen also some improvements on as far as the issue of being competitive is concerned. So government is actually doing very well. They are trying their level best, and business we also have to make sure that we support and we catch the fire.
It's
so
the
that
business and the voice of business. Have you ever clashed with the government where you are not agreeing in policy, or where you strongly feel that because of ZNCC we've managed to make a policy shift in these areas? Of what influence have you been as a chamber to represent the same sector that you guys are supposed to represent?
Okay, that used to happen about some 5-7 years ago. Government used to come up with some policies at times without consultation. But as it is now, there's a serious change whereby government is actually making robust and thorough consultations before they come up with any policy. And during the consultations, they actually work with business. They consult on the business side. So most of the issues or most of the SIs which they raise, they actually raise at times it's out of the business complaints. If I can talk of the issue of that SI which I'm talking about, it's actually business who went to the Ministry of Industry and Commerce and said, look, we are having quite a number of products which are being dumped in this country, and as a result, we are no longer competitive. We are no longer in a position to increase our capacity utilization. We are closing companies left, right, and center. Can you rescue us? And government had to craft the SI. And the same applies to the issue of special economic zones. Consultations were also done. So at the moment, government is really consulting, and we are working together. So most of the policies, especially business policies, government is actually consulting. And you find that before some of them are tabled into Parliament, Parliament itself, they go right around the country consulting as well, and they are talking to business in most cases, of which at the end of the day, that's why you are finding that these bills, they just sail through in Parliament without challenges. It's because people are now starting to talk the same language.
Because they've already been consulted.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
fully understand. Ms. Norupiri, last but not least, I fully understand that this is your last term. You've had 2 terms as the president of ZNCC. And if I'm not mistaken, today is your last day as the president of ZNCC. How has been your experience with ZNCC? What can you point out as the major achievements that you guys have made?
Yeah, it was actually a very tough time for us because my term was there, or I'm just finishing it, after business went through 3 rough patches, and it's actually in the mode of recovery. If I'm talking of the 3 rough patches, I'm talking of the hyperinflationary period, whereby we all know that at some stage we were the highest in the world in terms of inflation. And during that period, we had now the time which the economy was dollarized. That was the second challenge, whereby every cent which you had was now zero in the bank. So companies had to start afresh. Companies had to mobilize funds. Companies had to come up with their own initiatives for them to be where they are. And some companies, they actually had some challenges. Banks, they moved in swiftly with interest rates of 35 to 40% per annum, but companies didn't have option. They had to grab them out. And some companies are still suffering because of those high interest rates which came during those times. So this time now where we are, is the time whereby the government have seen some stability and is actually trying to come up with policies. So we have contributed on almost all the policies which are business related. And as a chamber, we were seized with most of these issues. Because government has seen some stability, and they are now saying, let's move on to help business, let's move on to resuscitate the economy through coming up with pro-business policies, which we have been heavily involved as a chamber. And that's basically what we were working on throughout. And I'm happy because most of our views and most of what we proffered to government were actually taken into consideration. And as it is now, we are really part of it. We are part of everything. We are part of most of the SIs which government actually came up with, and we are happy with that as a chamber. So during my tenure, I'm very happy because we achieved, and we are somewhere as business. We've got a story to tell.
We have managed to learn and understand the best moments that you had as the ZNCC president. Any regrets, any errors that you may have encountered, any negatives that you may want to share with us, probably maybe in your past 2-year term? What do you think were probably your worst moments, or any regrets that you've managed to highlight?
Yeah, obviously you cannot do everything you do. It doesn't mean that it's good to everyone. And one thing which you have to know is that if you are climbing up the ladder, our economy or our system, in fact globally, if you are climbing up the ladder, you are better off making more friends than enemies. So during my time, I was actually trying to really work with those people who are business minded and whom I believe can be the best friends on as far as business is concerned. You have to work with people who speak the same language. But during the process, even during the policy interventions, even during our advice, even during to business or to government, obviously whatever you say, not everyone likes it.
True.
You find that you get some people who oppose, you get some people who say negative things, you get some people who are very much against you, and that's normal with life. So life has to move on. And looking at those things, for example, the SI, a lot of people, they were really coming to us. Some of them, they were actually calling us to say, what are you trying to do? Who do you think you are? And so forth. But look, we kept on drilling to them to say, look at the benefits. These are the benefits. People are being employed. Our universities and colleges, they are pumping out more than 20,000 graduates per annum, but they are not going anywhere because there is no industry. But once this is done and become functional, we start now getting people, we start now employing people. And now you find that some companies, they have increased capacity, like what I've said, and they are employing people. And the very same people are actually calling to say, look, I think we were misdirected. This thing is really working. We have seen some tremendous benefits which some companies are enjoying. And therefore, that's life. And we accept it. And I would like to wish the person who is coming after me, I would like to wish her the best. And I believe he will also take the chamber to another level.
You heard it all from the horse's mouth. For the past 2 terms, we had Ms. Norupiri as the president of the chamber. Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce, as he hands over the baton to the next best person to come through to take the sector forward. And it is www.techmec.tv. To Ms. Norupiri, thank you so much, sir, for taking your time to have us here. Hope we'll catch up and have more and more conversations with you in the next upcoming periods.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much.
By research. Our research is weak. We are now dependent on donor funding, such a critical sector. That's not safe.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.